And we're live. Hi, Satwikk. Welcome to this debrief. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. And congrats on your 740. It's a fantastic score. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself and how you started working on the GMAT?
Yeah, so it has, and thank you so much for congratulating me. Yeah, I'm really thrilled that finally I could get a 740. To be very honest, it has been quite an excruciating journey for me. It started in 2018 when I decided to give the GMAT and I decided to apply to B schools abroad. And I ended up joining one of the institutes in South Delhi. And yeah, so I attended some coaching classes for about 2-3 odd months. I took a break for a couple of months because I was very busy at work. In 2019, March 31st is when I gave the first GMAT attempt. I did use the free tests that were given to me by this institute, and there were about a bunch of 10 tests, and I did fairly well in each of those tests. I was getting a 690, 700, 710. So I was fairly confident because honestly speaking, I was just aiming for a 700 plus score in my first attempt. And I went to the test center, and yeah, I was absolutely horrified and mortified when I got to know that when I saw 620 on the screen. So I was absolutely dejected, and I could see a complete disconnect between what I thought is going to happen and what actually happened. And clearly, the tests that I had given using the free test that I had given using the software that was shared with me, that clearly did not work out. And that is when I started doing a bit of research, and I did enroll into the eGMAT program, wherein I...
The test that you gave, it was very curious that you mentioned. Were the questions not similar to the GMAT? Was the scoring pattern not similar? Like, what was the problem there?
I genuinely feel the level of difficulty wasn't there at all. And as I started getting the questions correct, and when I did do an analysis of sorts before giving my first attempt, and I did do a bit of analysis on all the 10 tests that I'd given. So when it comes to the 700 plus difficulty level questions, those just weren't there. Even I was getting a constant 51 in quant. Even by the end of the section, I was getting about 29-30 questions right. I was able to finish the test in about 55 minutes instead of 65 minutes. And it just boosted my ego like anything. And when I gone to the test center, I was just taken aback because 65 minutes was not enough. In fact, in my first exam, I ended up missing out on 2 questions in quant, and that's why my entire confidence took a hit, because in my head I was so confident when it comes to quant, if not verbal. But when I started off with quant and I could not finish the test, finish the quant section, I was just taken aback, and it almost seemed as if whatever I did in those 4, 5, 6 months before giving my first attempt was a complete waste.
Do you remember your splits on that 620?
620, I guess I got a Q48 and V26 or 27, something of those sorts. So probably it could be a V25.
Wow. So your verbal improvement is really staggering, because you go from like a V26 to a V40, right?
Yep.
And you mentioned that spent 6 months studying with this institution. You leveraged some of their resources, but they weren't up to scratch. And you ultimately, after having a bad sort of setback on the GMAT, you ultimately sort of found your way to eGMAT. So could you take me through how that happened? Like, what was the beginnings of that journey?
So at that point of time, I was actually looking. I was just not looking for a question bank. I was looking for, when I saw my verbal score, I clearly understood that there are huge gaps that need to be filled up. So I was looking for someone to coach me, and I did a bit of research online. And honestly speaking, I just found it a complete waste to spend about 5,000 odd bucks an hour on a personal tutor. That is not what I wanted to spend, and that is not something that I could honestly afford. And I read quite a lot of reviews when it comes to eGMAT and about how structured their program is, especially verbal. deep inside, I did think that I could work as far as quant is concerned. My quant is good, and probably if I do, if I practice enough, I'll be able to get a good score. So I was very worried about verbal, and that's when I enrolled into the eGMAT. I enrolled into the eGMAT platform, and I spent about 1.5 to 2 months just going through uh, each and every topic which was covered in the verbal section. I did cover a few topics in the quant section as well, topics such as probability, topics such as permutation and combinations and sets, because they do end up getting a little tricky. I was very good. I was very good with geometry and arithmetic, but I did think that when it comes to these special topics, probably I could gain a lot out of what the platform was offering. And yeah, I was fairly confident after going through that entire grind of 1.5 to 2 months. And yeah, and that's when I thought that probably after accessing the Scholaranium, by using it for about a month or so,
This is a very interesting approach, Satwikk. You know you're good at quant, right? But you still want to spend the extra, what is it, 10,000-15,000 rupees buying an entire quant course, which you know you're probably not going to use extensively, but you want to basically spot reduce weaknesses, basically target stuff like probability, which is everyone's weakness, right? Like probability and inequalities, for instance, right? And just strengthen those concepts.
See, to be very honest, the difference, when it comes to my score, probably the two questions that I got right and which I found very easy when it comes to permutation and combination, and when it comes to probability, without accessing the course, probably my score would have been 710 or 720 and not a 740. Right. Those couple of questions, when the level increased, those couple of questions that I got right probably might have been the game changer for me. So yeah.
Also, where you're focusing on building your concepts first. I mean, you spent about 1.5 to 2 months focusing just on concepts, just watching videos. And what most test takers like to do is just like skip to the questions, start solving questions, and hope that solving the questions will make their score better. So your strategy was like a flip of that. So could you speak more to that? Why did you do that?
See, I was absolutely dejected after seeing a V25, 26, and in my head, I knew for a fact that I was aiming for a 710 or 720, and for that, I had to get a V38, 37 at least. So I knew for a fact that I have a long way to go, and that was a huge reality check for me. And I did not want to rush into things at all. Though along the way, I did make a lot of mistakes. That's one of the reasons why I had to take the GMAT 4 times more in order to get the score that I got. But every step of the way, it was a learning process. But when I gave the first attempt, I just wanted to do justice, and I just wanted to clarify clarify the concepts. I did not want to just jump onto the Scholaranium, start doing questions, and with the thought process that practice makes the man perfect. Because honestly speaking, when it comes to GMAT, it is not about practicing questions.
Absolutely.
So and I used up a lot of question banks, not just from eGMAT, otherwise also from other platforms also. And honestly speaking, practicing more number of questions just did not help. In fact, it was so detrimental. Because I ended up attempting questions which just would not belong to the GMAT format, and it unnecessarily it just created so much of confusion in my head, because it's just not about attempting the questions, it's about the explanations and the solutions. If those solutions don't go hand in hand with what the GMAT is expecting out of you, then it's just a colossal waste, and it just ends up confusing the hell out of you. And that did happen during my second attempt and my third attempt, because it was only after the third attempt that I considered eGMAT as my Bible. The solutions that they had given, the Scholaranium as the only question bank. In fact, I relied on the Scholaranium more than I relied on the OG. For my fifth and sixth attempt, I honestly did not even open the OG, because the solutions that were given to each and every question, and the quality of questions that were there in the Scholaranium, and the fact that you could do such a deep analysis of where you're going wrong, where you're spending extra time on what sections. It's also not just about the accuracy. In my second, third, fourth attempt, all I kept emphasizing was using the Scholaranium, get my accuracy up, using the Scholaranium, get my accuracy up. My accuracy was going up, but if I was spending 30 seconds extra on a few questions, that was just ruining everything for me. And that is one of the reasons why in my first attempt, I got a 620. In my second attempt, I ended up getting a 610, even though I knew for a fact that my concepts were far better than what they were before. In my third attempt, I again got a 620, again because not that I was not growing. It was just that I was spending too much of time on these questions, and it was only after I did an analysis and I went when I opened the Scholaranium account and I ended up seeing what or where exactly I was going wrong, and that I was taking a lot of time on questions on which I shouldn't be taking this kind of time. And that's where the game completely changed, and my confidence level grew. And whatever test.
Did you realize that? Like, did someone maybe point you in this direction and say, hey, you know what, like, this is what you're doing wrong?
So I'll tell you, it was after my fifth attempt. So I gave my fourth attempt, I got a 710. I was relieved. I was very relieved to get a 700 plus score. But I was again in a rush. I was like, I'll just give another attempt in the next 19 days because no, 16 days, you've got to wait for 16 days before you can give the next attempt. I ended up giving the next attempt. I got a 690. Again, I was just a little disappointed. And it was before my sixth attempt, I got in touch with Nava. Nava, in fact, gave me a call. I shared my ESRs with them. So constantly, I kept renewing my eGMAT account. For about 22 months, I kept renewing the eGMAT account. I don't even know how much money I ended up spending, but it was totally worth it. So it was Nava who got in touch with me, and he was of the opinion that let's just go on a call. You're putting in a lot of effort, you're solving a lot of questions, but there is something which is missing, and there's some place you're going wrong. Sure. You have the potential, but you just need to align your time and effort in the right direction. And I ended up spending about 45 minutes on a Zoom call with Nava, and he went through the entire analysis, and he went through all the tests that I had attempted on the Scholaranium. And he just asked me to lay emphasis on the things that I'm not doing right. So my habit was, again, just to get the accuracy up. But he made me identify that probably in geometry, circles is something that I am not good at. He just asked me to lay emphasis on the things where I'm getting most questions wrong. And I should not keep on practicing the things which I'm good at. For instance, percentages, or for instance, subject-verb agreement in verbal. He just asked me to concentrate on the places where I'm constantly getting questions wrong, where I'm spending more time. And I just did that for 25, 30 days. My confidence level was incredibly high. Yeah. Though during the paper, I did feel that I've ruined the paper because the difficulty level was so high. But deep inside, I was just giving myself the benefit of the doubt. That's probably because I've done things right, that the system is giving me difficult questions. And when I submitted and I saw 740, honestly speaking, all I wanted to do at that point of time was thank Nava, because it would not have happened. I would still have been giving the GMAT. I would have given the seventh attempt also, eighth attempt also, because I had a target in my head, and I do not lack the determination. It's just the guidance. Had someone just given me this guidance, and or probably had Nava not come into my life, honestly speaking, I would have probably even given up on the on this dream of mine to apply to B schools, because I did not want to apply with the 710, considering the fact that I already belong to such a competitive school. And if I were to spend $200,000 on a college, I wanted to go to a good college, and it would not have happened without Nava, and it would not have happened without the efforts that I put in and the constant support that I got from eGMAT. The learning curve for me was extremely slow, but yeah, it was absolutely worth it at the end of the day. And the only good thing that I did was I kept renewing the eGMAT account, and I just got addicted to the Scholaranium account, and I took that as a Bible of sorts, and that is what helped me get where I am today, honestly speaking.
Yeah, That's fantastic insight, and that's very interesting that you actually point that out, because human tendency to just practice things that you're already comfortable with, and maybe not so much get out of your comfort zone and practice things that you're weak in. And sometimes you just need that external guidance to say, hey, like shake you up and say, hey, you know what? Forget all the stuff. You need to focus on this, and these concepts, and that's what's going to get you over that 700, 710 hump, right? And yeah, like talking to Nava, talking to some of our other mentors that we've got, I think that adds a lot of that value at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So once you focused on your weaknesses, do you think like you had a lot more confidence going into your final attempt? How was like test day for you?
Honestly speaking, when once I started focusing on my weakness, there were so many new things that I learned in those. After spending 22 months of studying for the GMAT, I was completely shocked and surprised to learn such new concepts, because then I did not have to practice 80 questions a day. All I had to do was just look at those 10 questions that I've been getting wrong over and over again, and just look at the solution and go into the depth of why exactly I've been getting them wrong. And I discovered so many things when it comes to these difficult questions the difficulties that I was facing. I had no idea that I had problems, pertaining to a few topics in quant, a few topics in verbal. And what helped was on the test day, when I saw questions from that particular topic, my confidence level was so very high, and it took me hardly 25 or 30 or 40 seconds to answer the questions, in which I used to struggle for 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, and there was a mental block also. Uh, for instance, the bold face type questions, when I used to see those, I almost used to start crying in front of the screen, because I just could not figure them out.
Yeah.
And after discussing with Nava, all I did was I just laid a lot of emphasis on the bold-faced questions. I got a couple of bold-faced questions in the paper. It took me hardly a minute to eliminate the rest of the options. And that confidence, it just trickled down throughout the paper, because the things I knew I'm going to get them right. But it was the things I did not know, which appeared so very simple in the paper, that the things I knew, it was just a piece of cake.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was incredible.
When you practice things over and over and over and over again, it just becomes like autopilot. Like you know what you're going to do, you know what you're going to execute. So you have way more time to focus on your weak areas to actually get those problems right, and that helps you get that 740 score, the really hard questions right. That helps you get that elite score. Yeah, I mean, this was very, very insightful to me, having seen so many candidates get good scores, but like your story was really something inspirational to me. And thank you for sharing this, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so very much to you, to eGMAT. I mean, and yeah, for the constant renewals, I'm just so very glad that I kept getting a lot of discounts. Honestly, so you guys have been kind, and Nava was God sent. And honestly, that those 45 minutes truly changed quite a bit for me, from a 710 to a 740. The way now that I'm going to approach my MBA applications, it just changes everything. The fact that my score is above the average score of almost each and every college.
Yeah.
That just gives me the confidence to apply to the top to one of the top programs in the US. And yeah, let's see how it goes. But yeah, it wouldn't have been the same had I been applying with a 710. And my perspective, my target colleges would have been completely different. So yeah, so I'll give it to you guys. It's because of you.
Thank you so much again, and keep us posted about your admits. Yeah, best of luck on your applications.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much, Ram.
Bye, Satwikk.
Bye bye.